Venus Project TeamSpeak Seminar, May 27th, 2012.
This lecture is about 33 minutes long. It is the second half of the one we did last week. It's on expectations and predictability.
I mentioned a while back in one of your audio lectures about like a 2-minute hand holder as far as relationships, that you might like to hold hands for 10 minutes, but I like to hold hands for an hour.
That's okay.
How can you, in doing a survey...
If a person needs hand holding, you do it. If a person needs that.
But as far as compatibility, let's say somebody needs to listen to music to produce something, but...
You must expect that.
So, but if it's somewhat of a burden on me, I can't produce what I produce listening to the music.
And you say that if you like certain things about them, let's say you like 8 things about them, and 4 things you don't like. So you keep away from that area, or you tell them that you've been brought up to dislike that kind of music, or you've been brought up this way, and say, well, that's terrible. And I say, I don't want to argue with you, I'm just telling you the way I was brought up. I always cross my heart before I go off a diving board. I don't feel comfortable unless I do that. So your question is, can I live with that? No. And you have to disassociate from that area. You know what I mean by area? I never discussed religion with my mother because I can't. In the old days, I didn't know how. And no matter what I said, he said, I still believe in God. That means she was terribly insecure as a person. But if you say you're terribly insecure, she doesn't say that's right. I believe in a higher power that looks after us. There's too many wonderful things in nature that I can't explain. So I assume that all of this did not come about by itself, that somebody up there did it, designed it. And you say, well, how do you account for earthquakes? She says, after I die, I'll understand all that. There's a lot, the Lord works in strange ways. There's a lot of things I don't understand, which I will later. That people are talking like that. And I'm afraid of those people. I am afraid, so I don't associate with them. I'm afraid of people that hope the world will become better. I'm not afraid of people that make bridges and overbrace them so that they won't cave in. That's the kind of thing. Or designing fireproof buildings if you don't want kids or anybody else to be burned in a fire. And then if you study nutrition, you know that certain foods and certain things are cancer producing. And then it's your job to tell them from what you've read that that thing that you eat all the time produces harmful effects or damage to the kidney. And say, that's about, you've done all you can do. That's all you can do. If they continue to do that, the next question is, can I live with that? I suffer, so you have to leave. But if you can live with it, and they eat bologna and salami, and they get cancer of the intestines after 10 years, that's probable. You know what I mean? Should you be nice with them and hold their hand? Yes, if they need hand holding. I should have listened to you. Well, that's after the facts. Can't do anything. But if you hold their hand, they feel more comfortable. Laying on of hands for some people relieves pain. If you're sympathetic, if they're dying and they say, do you think there's a God? It's what you think that counts. That's all I think there is. I think I'm going to be with the Father. Say yes. Don't talk to them if you're an atheist. If they're on the way out, you don't want to depress them. To say, I think it'd be flowers and beautiful gardens waiting and no earthly problems. Because that's what they want to hear. And so they hold you and say, thanks. God bless you. But you got to understand who you're dealing with. Now, some doctors have just committed an operation or performed an operation. They say, do you think he'll now live with less pain? You say, I've done all I can do. It's now in his hands. Have you ever heard that? The recovery is in his hands. Yeah. So if he drops dead the next day, well, that's what the Lord ordered. All I did was the best I know how. But people that believe in God, if you're a doctor, they say, do you think he'll recover completely? it's better to say it's in his hands, because they won't understand. I did the best I can, not knowing how to suture certain intestinal problems. I did the best I knew how. Whether it's good enough or not, I'll let you know in a month or two. You can't talk that way to normal people. Normal means they're going to get mad at you. What do you mean you didn't know how to suture? You know, what do you suggest? Well, they can't suggest anything, but they put it in your hands, and they thank God. It seems so mixed up. If a doctor repairs a broken finger, it's off at an angle, he sets it right, you say, thank God. If there was no doctor around, the finger would be crooked all the time. So you thank the doctor. Well, you can thank the doctor with God's help. If you need that, hold hands with people that need it. And cater to, if you care about the people. Otherwise you say, I can't do anything about it. You can't be rational with people. You can be as rational as they permit. You know what that means? If you're looking for rationality, you may get hurt. Whatever they do is what they do. If a person spits, I know a guy, when I was a kid, his son was run over by a Mack truck, really crushed. And he used to stand on the corner yelling at all trucks that went by the rest of his life. He mentally could not accept that. So he used to stand on the corner yelling at every truck that went by. That's insufficient tools to handle the problem. Yelling at the trucks doesn't make them any safer. But if he designed a proximity unit so the truck dropped a canvas bag when it came out and picked up the kid, I would say that's better than yelling at the trucks. But the reason I don't like religion, because people don't have any tools to work with. The church says it's in his hands. When the Lord calls, he calls you. It has nothing to do with what age you're at. So the minister learns to say, didn't you enjoy the 7 years that God gave you that child? Then the Lord took him back. He liked him. So he gave you a wonderful child for 7 years. You should thank him for that. He could have taken it away right away. You know, if they don't come up with stuff like that, they can't maintain the congregation. They say, look, the kid got run over by a Mack truck. You accept it or you don't. Well, a guy gets going to another church. If the minister talked that way, he wouldn't be in business very long. Whatever happens to the will of God. That's what they do in the Arab world. It's the will of Allah. No matter what happens, if a bridge caves in or a bus goes off a highway with 1,000 people in it, it's the will of Allah. Well, if you accept the will of Allah, if you oppose the will of Allah, you're not a good Mohammedan. You know what I mean? Whatever happens is the will of God, earthquake or anything. And I've heard a blind man say, he said it to me, since I lost my eyesight, I really learned to appreciate vision. Can you understand that? He said, that's the Lord's way of telling me. I gave you eyesight, I gave you hearing, I gave you taste, and you bitched a lot. Now that you're blind, you now understand. Sometimes when a person's crippled, he watches people running and envies them, just being able to run. If you lose the use of your legs, you're going to either sit home and look out the window, or you're going to say, I sure envy those people that are able to run. They don't appreciate what they've got. So if you appreciate whatever you've got, there's a tendency for you not to grow. Everything I design, I change continuously because I don't know everything. So I accept the fact that I'm going to change things. If I don't, other people will. If I don't keep up with it, I will fall behind. So I try to read technical briefs. They're not always productive, but I have to read a lot of shit. There's a lot of stuff I don't agree with. Technical briefs are just technology without human concern. And technology with human concern is a system I identify with. I would say, what is all this for? Why do you want to build a new world? Why do you care about what people do? If it's the will of Allah, they do whatever Allah wants them to do. You can't change it. You can't change human nature. There's a tendency then to give up if you can't change human nature. Why bother with school? Why bother with ethics? Why send your kid to church if greed is normal, part of human nature? Ask them why they send their kid to religious school. Because it can change human behavior. That's why. You want your kid to be moral and ethical, you're not going to get it from the atheist club because they don't deal with that. You understand? Okay. Are there other aspects you want to discuss?
You have an expectation and you're disappointed. It doesn't go your way. What are tools to help ease the pain or to eliminate
I
the
don't know what he'll do. I don't know what she will do under those conditions. When those conditions occur and she does what you call the right thing, then you know. But you don't know what different people will do under different conditions. Do you think you know what I mean?
Instead of going to a prescription drug or picking up a bottle of alcohol or whatever we have.
Those are the tools that people have. Give them new tools. That you didn't make the world. That things grow, bugs grow, worms eat people. When I was a kid, there was a song called Avus. I don't know if you ever heard it. They put you in a big black box and cover you up with dirt and rocks. The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out. A big fat juicy one goes into your mouth. We used to sing this as a kid, and that modified me in many ways. And I saw that in dead cats. The worms would do all that coming out of their eyes and everything else. And I said, if I don't want to see things like that. If I don't see things like that, I always have glorious pictures of the world. I avoid stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? The real world is whatever the hell it is. If in the Arab world the guy beats his wife 3 and 4 times a day, if that's normal in that culture, when you go to the Arab world, you didn't go there. You weren't sent there by anyone to undo that. But if the Arab world said, we're tired of beating our wives, we don't like the practice, can you do anything about it? So while I've studied human behavior, I'll try to do what I can. So if the guy only beats his wife once a week now, you say he still beats his wife, that's good rather than 4 times a day. It means you've done something. The trouble with us, we look 100% change in people, and that's irresponsible thinking. So if a guy beats up his kid 3 times a day and now he beats him once a month, you're doing good for that guy. As the guy said, I've been a rob thief in America. Now I only steal occasionally, every 3 months. If I see something I like, I'm very careful and then I steal it. But they've done something. But if he still steals, you get mad at him as though he's been doing it all the time. People grow in increments, you know what that means? Little by little. So if you find degrees, the guy says, if I don't know something, I look it up on the website. That's better than asking my brother-in-law what he thinks, unless his brother-in-law is a student of human behavior. But if you ask your cousin that's older than you, what do you do in this case? That isn't the best information you can acquire. If you read books on human behavior, you're more apt to get better information than what's going to come out of your brother-in-law or your dad. And the Bible says, honor thy father and mother. So I tried this on a priest. I said, my mother hates the Catholic Church. She's a Catholic. And she spits every time she sees a picture of the Pope or anybody else. And should I honor them? And the priest becomes confused. Because most parents, he projects, work in behalf of their children. They work in behalf of their conditioning. If their children don't do the right thing according to their standards, the strap will do it according to their father's standards. So you have to give people tools I used to teach my kids, if the building catches fire, wet a blanket, put it over you and try to run out the door. Or if it's smoky, crawl on the floor because smoke rises. And my wife would say, what are you telling him those terrible things for? I hope they're never in that situation, but that's the best I can do, giving them tools for that situation while I'm teaching them whatever else I know. Do you understand that? Now, sometimes people live in a criminal neighborhood and they can afford it and they have bars on all the windows. So if it catches fire, they can't get out either with the bars on the windows. It keeps the thieves out. It keeps them in. Unless there's a gadget they turn and the bars fall off from the inside. Do you understand what I mean? So I can't handle that. I can only do what I know. And if it doesn't work, I don't say, Jesus, if I only knew that. I say, look, I didn't know that. So I never made a mistake in my life. I never did the wrong thing. And if I knew the right way, and I told her deliberately the wrong way, then I know that I don't know how to use my tools properly. I'm still projecting. And if a person says 4 things that I project all kinds of wonderful characteristics in that person, which they may or may not have. So it isn't another person that hurts you. It's your own projections. Do you understand that? Do you have trouble with that? The tools are whatever works. If I say, the Lord took my son because he was lonely, and the child was a beautiful child, and he wanted that child in heaven. I said, the Lord knows what he's doing. Thank you for the 7 years you've given me that child. There are people like that accept because they really believe in God. Not too many, but there are people like that. And so whatever the Lord wants, I have no right to complain. He made me, he made my son. If he took him back, it's his son too. So you can rationalize your way out of every hole. You understand what I mean? If you're brought up that way. The people of India, a lot of them, are brought up to believe that they're put on earth to suffer for their bad karma. So the more you suffer on earth, the more you're paying off karma that you committed in another life. Do you understand? So a person says, geez, the house went down, I lost 3 kids, I'm paying off my karma. Well, in India, it's easy to accept renunciation of all material wealth because there's not enough to go around. So it's a good philosophy in India. Won't work in New York at the stock exchange. The word success, if a successful person is a person that says, I don't believe in business and I don't believe in the money system, absolutely, totally rejects it. And he sleeps under a bridge. He wears old torn clothing. They say he's a bum, he's a failure. He's successful to his values. Can you understand that? A millionaire doesn't give a shit about people that makes millions. That's his ambition. He's successful to his values in that area, making money. So what's a successful person? Any person that has a philosophy that lives that way is successful to their values, not necessarily to life. If people he meets don't agree with him and he spits, he's troubled. He doesn't have the proper tools. But if he looks at them and says, well, they have different value system, and they don't spit, like a Jew spits at a swastika, or the German gets a lump in his throat. He feels sympathetic to it. So I would say that all behavior is shaped by culture. And if you have the means to change it, you do it. If you don't have the means, you try to find it. If you find yourself rejecting, say, boy, I sure projected a hell of a lot into that person. Facing the truth is very difficult. It's much easier to say they fucked up. get mad at them. They're always consistent with their background. You know what that means? Okay. Everybody is consistent with their background. There are no good or bad people. There are people you can't identify with, so you don't associate with them. If their values are too different than yours, you're going to have trouble. So if you're able to turn their values around at a course, saying 5 years from now I'll be able to relate to that person perfectly well. If you, from experience, you can determine that it may take 5 years or 2 years or 1 year. Sometimes it takes one session. If the person is really looking for an answer, if you provide that answer, they can in one session remember that the rest of their lives, if they're ready for it. If they respect their own opinion, it may take time. Because when you take away a person's values, they lose their identity. If you're a Lutheran, I take God away from you and leave you in midair. Say, what makes forest fires? What makes it? You're left in midair. But if you meet those needs that a person has, and you tell them if they can't let go of God, that man has free will. He can choose this or that. It's up to what you choose, if that's where they're at. You can't hit everybody with the truth. Sometimes doctors do. They say, you've got cancer and you got about 3 months, so wrap up your affairs. Well, the person gets hysterical. So, no, you must be wrong. Go to another doctor, he says the same thing. You got about 3 months to live. Wrap up your affairs. But if you say, doctors are only interested in your money, and you never know. But if you keep a positive attitude, you're apt to live 5 years or 10 years. The person would rather listen to you than the doctor says you got 2 months to live. Do you understand that? Depends on how badly damaged the person is. And if you do have a positive outlook, you could live longer. There are many cases where a person was dying in a hospital and the son was far away in another country, and it would take him a week to get back, so the guy would live another week because he expected to see his son. So your attitude can preserve life longer. And when a person says, do you believe in diet? Not entirely. If you ate the best food in the world and your pet dog got run over by a Mack truck, you might throw up. What happened to the good food? It isn't the good food, it's your attitude plus what you eat. You understand? If you have a negative outlook, the whole world is fucked up, they're all stupid, they'll never learn anything, then you hurt yourself. Even though you eat organically selected food, you hurt yourself. If you accept the reality out there, not in your head, if lightning hits a tree, you can say, the Lord didn't want that around. Or you could say lightning hit the tree because it was grounded. But you don't get mad or glad. You ask yourself, can I do anything about it? No, I don't know enough to do anything about it. Then you must accept whatever occurs, unless you learn how to do something about it. Do you know what I mean by do something about it? Make a scale, make a device, come up with a dietary formula, a way of easing pain. Well, that's what I mean by do something about it. And there are many religions that do not believe in easing pain. If the Lord didn't want you to have pain, you wouldn't have it. So pain was there for a reason. And if you give a person narcotics and they don't feel the pain, you're putting bad karma up front. He's still got to pay off. You're interfering with his payments. Do you understand? If you're brought up that way. So you got so many things you're contending with. You do a survey, if they're metaphysical, get the hell out of the picture, because you can't do anything. But if you hope for the best, there are many people that do, and they are comfortable in all their lives, and they believe that the Lord was looking after them. And they don't wonder why there are poor people out there, because the Lord knows what he's doing. They're not poor for nothing. They're poor for a purpose. So you can rationalize your way out of being sympathetic or caring, you know what I mean? By saying, if the Lord wanted him to be wealthy. That's why I believe in the Lord. He gave me a Cadillac, a yacht, 2 wonderful children, and a wonderful wife. I don't know why the Lord picked on me, but thank God. You know, it's pleasing to not have to carry the burden of the world. When there's an earthquake in Japan, they say, well, because that they worship the wrong God. That's why. So I didn't make it, and that's a Japanese problem. Now, I come to Japan to bring them the good book, the truth, Christianity. There are people who do that, to go to different countries to bring God to them. That's why they're suffering so much. In Haiti, because the blacks are promiscuous, they worship false gods. That's why they're suffering so much. I would say they lack information, certain types of it, or they lack the resources to make it happen. Resources means education, whatever the hell is lacking. But I don't look at a person that says, today's my lucky day, knock wood. I look at them as victims of culture, not bad people. I don't see any bad people. Can you understand that? Now, it's much easier to get mad at people, get angry and yell, rather than keep it inside. If I do something that Roxanne doesn't like, she says, it's a terrible thing. As long as she gets it out of her system, but if she swallows it, she hurts herself. Do you understand? If you really can't accept what I say, the best thing to do is to tell a person, I didn't like what you did Saturday. And what was that? It's because you didn't tip your hat when you saw Aunt Minnie. There was a time it was normal for a guy to tip his hat walking down the street. In France, they used to have a pisser that was about up to your chest, so you couldn't see the guy pissing. But he used to tip his hat to people walking by while he was pissing. Now you say, that's obscene, that's terrible, if that's where you're coming from. Everything that another person doesn't know about is unacceptable. That is, it doesn't flow through their head smoothly. If you take an Indian, they made a movie called Eskimo years ago. They took an Eskimo, brought him to New York, educated him, but he still wanted to go back to the igloo. And near the end of the picture, he goes back to the igloo, because that's where his identity was. With his mother, his father, the seal hunting. New York was too much of a change. Can you understand that? That's why some older people say they've gone too far, because they were brought up under farming conditions, different conditions. The guy that grows food hydroponically is not living naturally. And if they get mad at you, just say wearing clothes is unnatural. Living in a house is unnatural. Wearing eyeglasses is unnatural. You know what I mean? What are you going to do with all that? So are there people that live unnatural? I'd say most people do. Brushing your teeth is unnatural. In Polynesia, the women used to chew coconuts every morning, and they cleaned their teeth. But they had to pick out some coconuts from between the teeth. But they used to chew food and push it into the baby's mouth, like that, with their tongue. And that gave the children more antibodies from the older person. But they didn't do it for antibodies. They did it because that's where they were brought up. When the witch doctor throws his son-in-law into the volcano, he's not a bad guy. He's doing what he's been told is what the volcano needs to stop erupting. But there's so many different types of conditioning, so many different things that people believe that have no basis at all, and they have no way of knowing. And people kill other people because of their value differences. Do you know what I mean? There's always somebody wanting to kill you no matter what you believe.
You said what we want is predictability.
Well, this is what people really want, but you can't have it by wanting it. You can have it by learning.
But is it worthwhile to try to seek a high degree of predictability from many people?
Only when you have problems, you want predictability. If you fall in love 400 times and the girls disappoint you, the girls didn't disappoint you. It's your own projections that disappointed you. You didn't know what they do under certain circumstances.
So expectations and projections are really the same thing?
Yes, expectations and projections. Unless your expectations are based on technology. When you mix certain chemicals together, you're going to get a phone. You know what I mean? That's not projection. That's experience. Most animals, they will project sometimes, animals. But most animals depend, if you don't run after the other animal and kill it or hold its throat until they die, they're easier to eat. They move around while you're eating them alive. It seems that jackals don't learn that. They eat the animal just while he's still alive. But some animals kill the animal first. It's not that they don't want him to suffer. They find it easier. And some animals tear the fur away, or feathers, before they start biting, because the feathers interfere with the taste. And no animal says, maybe that poor pigeon I ate has a family to go back to. They don't think that way. A respectable person is one that acts in accordance with the dominant values. So I can't respect anybody. They act in accordance with the dominant values. He's our king, he is. You know, that's the dominant values. I don't respect a king. But in the old days, a man was appointed a king because he fought in a battle and he killed a lot of the enemy. So he was the king. But the king's son did nothing, but he inherits the kingdom. He's called a prince. And in my school books, the prince was always the hero. And the nations with kings and queens were respected. The queen said this or the king said that. All my school books upheld old cultures. Did your school do that? Did you have the sacred prince? And I looked at princes and as people that ran the community with a fucked up value system. Other things poisoned me, whatever else I've been exposed to. I wasn't right or anything. I was exposed to enough bits to see the falseness of that. In my neighborhood, there were so many different belief systems that my parents would say, that's a good belief system, that's a bad belief system. And the people that I got to know that were in the bad belief system were good people. So I saw good and bad in all people. In the old days, that's the language we used, good and bad, or right and wrong. But the real world was contradictory to what my parents taught me. So did I lose respect for my parents? My concept of respect changed. But I never told my parents that your belief systems are limited, because that wouldn't work. You get a spanking.
Okay, there are a lot of social experiments existing in appearing communities that are much, much closer to a resource-based economy than anything else. How can we use these initiatives to help the transition? Can we enter existing communities and transform them to be more like a resource-based economy?
The real effectiveness of any system is after it's installed. We can't do that in a transitional system.
Do you think we could approach existing communities and introduce the resource-based economy?
Yes, you're going to attempt to do that, but it cannot be manifest until it's installed.
So you're talking about any community in itself wouldn't be a resource-based economy?
Exactly that.
Yeah. It would be a transition step, though.
Yes.
Does anybody want to take the next question?
I can.
Sure, go ahead.
Are the experiences from initiatives such as Marina Leda, Transition Networks, Towns, or Porco della Energia Renewable important for the Venus Project? I'm sorry about the reading of this. Important for the Venus Project, or are they going in a completely opposite direction? I volunteered to take this question because I actually did a little research about the places that the question was mentioning, especially the Marina Leda. Just one second. I would say that the question is, I would say, a bit extreme when it comes to that they're going in a completely different direction. Marina Leda is a community that is based on a plot of land that is 25 square kilometers. There's 2,700 people there. It's actually an agricultural town, and workers do get paid, even though they get paid the same wage. It's 47 euros for a 6.5-hour working day. They had an unemployment rate which is considered quite low. Out of the 2,700 people there, 130 were unemployed. But that actually constitutes a 4.8% unemployment rate, which, for those of you who are not aware of this, is actually a high unemployment rate. And other things like, well, they do actually get paid for, they do pay actually to get medical health in the hospital and stuff like that. I wouldn't say from TVP's point of view that they are going in a completely different direction. I would say that they, as Roxanne mentioned a minute ago, that it can be a transitional phase. But I would say that these towns, these agricultural towns in general, they are based on labor, meaning that the people who live there work and produce their own goods, let's say, and services. And this cannot really be compared to a resource-based economy, because the necessity, or let's say this compulsory labor, is actually taken out of the equation. So I would say they're doing the best they can in order to facilitate the transition in their own way, in their own ideology.
Thanks a lot for that. Why didn't Jack Catron work closely with you after you left Bensonhurst? I have read his books, and it seems that Catron had very good knowledge on the resource-based economy. I think he would have made a valuable member of the Venus Project.
Perhaps he would have. I don't know. I was gone for years when I left New York, so I don't know what he followed through on.
He did a lot of good work after you stopped seeing him in regards to spreading these ideas and these values.
Yes.
He, well, you did have a membership with Socio-Cyberneering, but not the Venus Project. But Jack Catron stayed in very close touch with Jacques while he was alive, right up until he died. So, and we saw him a couple times since I knew Jacques 35 years ago in California and in Venus. So he was always trying to help this direction and always trying to help Jacques, essentially. But we didn't have a type of organization set up like we do now.
Right.
But I think he was one of the few of the kids that Jacques changed a great deal, that really followed through more so, helping to spread these ideas than anyone else.
Yes.
Would you say? Anybody want to take the next question?
I can go as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure what this article is, so if anybody has read it.
The article is basically Richard Stallman's, let's say, comment. I would place it more in terms of a comment rather than any kind of official statement towards the principles of the Zeitgeist movement. And I would say that I guess there's some kind of a misunderstanding. He points, let's say, 3 points that basically their statement has some flaws, but I really don't know what this question has to do with the Venus Project. As far as I can say, that Stallman has missed out on a lot of information, maybe due to that reason, maybe due to the reason that he actually concentrated on the Zeitgeist movement's agenda and principles rather than actually go directly to the Venus Project. The first thing he mentions is that the variety is too big of goods and services that are provided in the system. Thus, a computerized system that kind of but decides what to be produced and how much resources to be involved is too difficult to accomplish, which again, it's a bit difficult to actually constitute at this stage, because today we have very, very advanced systems that manage such productions. Maybe he's not aware of this. And the second thing he actually mentions is that we cannot predict the changes of values, in that some kind of values there might not be, let's say, applicable for the culture that we're traveling towards. I'm sure that you would find the lecture of Jacques Fresco, Functional Ethics, from 1974-1980 lectures. There actually explains about values. There's another lecture which actually, the name of it is called Identifying and Changing Values. I'm sure that you would find that interesting too. And the third thing he actually says is that he actually states that there's a human nature, and the aspect of this human nature, the tendency to compete, there's no solution for that in this statement of principles of the Zeitgeist movement. Yet again, I would like to conclude that this is the statement of principle of the Zeitgeist movement and not of the Venus Project, and that the last, his third point, is not really valid, as everybody who's actually read a lot of information from Jacques' books and listened to a lot of his lectures, we know that the tendency to compete is not human nature, as there is no human nature.
No, I don't usually comment on that because that's another person's point of view. And I can only deal with the Venus Project, and the person's giving his own limitations. And so I don't deal with that.
Yeah, you're correct about competition. It is generated by society. If you don't have competition in this society, you don't get goods and services. So you're always trying to compete and win out over somebody else's well-being, actually, when it comes down to it. So that really wasn't about the Venus Project. You're right. Thanks for the comment on that article. Changes take some time. Can we talk about certain percentage of a resource-based economy? This is 40% resource-based economy community. This is 80%. This is 95%, for example. And can we put it like a game, like a challenge for existing communities to change and become fully resource-based economy?
No, it would serve no useful purpose.
Yeah, there's a big controversy about people starting their own communities or feeling that they could approach communities and change them to a resource-based economy, or they would understand it better because they live communally. I think it's a great idea to introduce this value system or resource-based economy to any existing community that's working. In some ways, they might understand this more so if they are living communally. But these are communities that started just for self-preservation. They didn't start understanding the direction of a resource-based economy or the Venus Project, nor are they advocating that. They're living pretty much, that I know of, the different communities, pretty much within themselves to have a higher standard of living and being more cooperative. And that does work in some instances, and others that they can't exist within the monetary system and be able to make it and have resources. So there really are no communities out there that are basing their designs on a resource-based economy. If we had a community, it may not be totally self-sufficient, the first community within the monetary system. I don't see how it really could be unless we had a tremendous amount of money put into it and resources by different people who donated it. I mean, that is a possibility. But what we're advocating is a total social global systems approach. And it's a total socio-economic system that's new in all aspects. And if we get the first city going, when we get the first city going, there might be many different variables how that might come into existence and what that might look like within the monetary system. But ideally, it would have people in that first city that are all working toward, in some way, working toward a global resource-based economy. There would be people who would be writing books. Hopefully we would have full, complete studios for films, doing gaming. I mean, doing the things we're trying to do now, but all in one location with resources so it could happen more so. We'd have technicians there, technical people who are working on the next city, who are working on the automated systems to make the next city better. Hopefully we would have a theme park of the future, what we call a theme park of the future. It wouldn't be just entertainment, but it would be a theme park where people would go and actually see what a resource-based economy on a global scale would look like. So they have something to aim toward. Everything that would be done in the theme park would be to understand the values and the direction and the shortcomings of what people are living in today. So when you talk about existing communities being a resource-based economy, they aren't at all, nor did they think about it in these terms. So we'd ask you to learn more about what a resource-based economy is and what our notions might be like and what we're advocating. You can't superimpose it on existing communities. There are all kinds of different communities that are existing today. Some are very metaphysical, some are very religious, but they're not really advocating a resource-based economy. But that doesn't mean that we don't stop talking to them or inviting them in with what we're doing or trying to explain what we're doing more so. If they can incorporate any of those things, that would be fine. Okay, Jacques, please, will you detail what similarities there were between Katrin's Walden 3 and what it would be like living in the Venus Project?
There's no sense in doing that because he didn't consult with me on that design, so it was Katrin's interpretation of what he felt the Venus Project would be like. But it had nothing in common with the actual workings of the Venus Project.
Have you ever read Stuart Chase's book called The Proper Study of Mankind? If so, what are your thoughts on it?
I would say, since he did not touch the system and offer an alternative design, I have no comments. His main aspect was communication and semantics, which was insufficient for attaining a resource-based economy.
Jacques, can you elaborate on your thoughts about social transition from the monetary system to a resource-based economy?
Well, roughly, this system would undergo violence when they cut out the support of the poor. When you cut out medical and sufficient funds to buy food, people will form large groups and break store windows and take what they need. If not for themselves, they'll do it for their own children. Then I believe that the existing establishment will call on the National Guard to try to maintain order as best they can. That won't work. The troublesome area would be the transition, because we don't control the transition. The transition will be monitored by the establishment. There's going to be a lot of problems, assassinations, murders, crimes of all sorts. The transition will not be smooth. That's all I can say about it now.
I think the best hope for the transition is what people do to work towards it, to introduce, these ideas, although we've been working at it for a long time, are really relatively new to the general public. And it depends on a lot of people come to us and say, what are you going to do? How do you get the transition? When's it all going to come about? But as we always say, we have no money, we have no power. It depends on what everybody else does. If you want to see it happen, then you have to work towards it. Otherwise, I can assure you, nothing's going to happen. So it just depends on who we meet and who other people get to introduce this to, and how much people work at it to try and introduce it to the public.
I'm sorry, I see the transition as very bumpy or rough, because most people are not that familiar with it.
They don't know what to advocate. Anybody want to take the next question?
I can try to answer that. Is there an easy way, with examples possibly, to convince people that politics will not solve people's problem? I live in Egypt, and now people have really high expectation about the elections, and I wish to change the mindset. I would say it's no easy way to change people's mindset if they already made up their mind. They really have to start questioning the system first, and then you can present the shortcoming and solutions. One of that ways, which actually may be useful to make them understand that most of the politicians don't know anything about social change or anything. They not contribute in social development at all. Just Jacques always talk about it. Just approach the politician and ask them specific question: how to improve life of people, how can produce more food, how to make transportation safer. They don't have any answers for that, so that maybe show there if they're competent in to be decision makers. But if you would like to change the mindset of people, it's not something that you just go and approach them with different views. You have to make it in a certain time when by social pressures are right, when they're ready to make the next step, when they're looking for a different solution. You can present the different views, you can educate them about the system, and so on.
When politicians attempt to solve problems, they have no idea how to go about it. It's only when they fail that you might get some new ideas in.
Okay, thanks. Can we live in something like a resource-based economy before most people adopt this direction, creating such communities with our labor and creativity? How to organize this better? How to organize it most helping the transition? How do you organize something like, do you see as a next step small communities to
only if the majority of people know about the Venus Project and they say, how do we go about it? And we give them a blueprint. Only when they ask the question, when they're ready to do that. If they're not ready for it, you have to wait till the system collapses entirely. Otherwise, people don't really give a damn unless it affects them. When they can't get a job and don't get relief and don't get food in an emergency, they'll be looking for answers.
What about people within those who want to see a resource-based economy do small communities toward it? Do you see that?
Well, it's better
as
than
viable?
nothing, but it's not the answer.
I know there are some people who have come to us and said, we'd like to do a Venus Project community, we'd like your blueprints, we'd like you to oversee the people, we'd like you to do this and do that. And they were dictating what the community would be like. This is not something we feel we're interested in putting our time and energy in right now. The only way we would do this, the only way Jacques and I would do this is if we had enough fundings to do it. Because, you know, we initially took 20 years to do, or 25 years to build this ourselves with no funding, having to work, no outside funding. We had to finance the whole thing. We had to make the buildings by hand. It just took too long. It wasn't worth it. We had to do all the models, the renderings. You know, we did all that. And it's something we really don't want to go through again with very minimum funds. This is not what we're trying to advocate for our time. We are trying to get a large city going, a larger city going. We are sending off blueprints for quotes. We do have people that may be able to get quotes for the engineering and the architectural plans. We're working on all this, but we wouldn't take on our time and energy to do just to try and have people go out and get donations from few people. It's a huge job in terms of funding to buy land, to get materials to build. I mean, people think it might be very easy, but it's really not. And it's kind of a waste of our time, we feel, to start on that level again and not go to the next step. I think if people want to do small communities so it's easier for them to live and get through certain things together, as things start to fall apart, this is fine, whatever people want to do to make life easier for them. But if you had a nice little community and you were living well and sustainably and making your own food and doing pamphlets on a resource-based economy even, and the things started to fall apart, people are going to invade your little community. It's really a global situation, and we're trying to reach out globally and internationally and make products that would reach the general public, not so much a community that lives to themselves.
That's right.
Some engineers I talk to are frightened that mass use of geothermal power can cool the earth and cause disaster. What do you tell them?
I don't tell them anything because they don't understand how we convert geothermal energy to electrical energy.
Jacques, we were thinking of starting a political party, but in the manifesto to abolish the political system as it is today, Why do you think that politics does not work?
Well, politicians do not work. You need technicians to change the world, and they have to be a member of the Venus Project. The technicians have to follow the Venus Project's procedures in order to make it work. In other words, the technicians will be assigned different projects, building of schools, cities, etc. But it has to be under the directive of the Venus Project. Otherwise, you're going to have each city a little different. It's not going to work.
A lot of times people want to come up and do a political party and advocate different values in the Venus Project. That's fine. Any way you can get these ideas out there would be fine, but politics as it's set up today, it doesn't go anywhere. It only serves those who put them into power and those who have differential advantage in the system. It's not there to help people at all. Anybody want to take on the next question? Okay, we'll take this question.
It's hard to understand the question there.
Right, it is hard to understand the question. I think they're saying it's something, I'm just guessing, that as the world rallies on economy, poverty, debt, if they're becoming more educated about this, what can you say about this? Is this the beginning of the transition?
No, only if they advocate a system and describe how that system works. Without that, it won't work. They have to read the book The Best That Money Can Buy, and then ask the questions. They're asking questions without knowing enough about the Venus Project. This is a major problem.
Do you think that this is the time when things are falling apart in the world, though? Collapse?
They still have to become familiar with the Venus Project, otherwise it won't work.
Yes, it's like in Egypt. Things collapsed there. They got rid of a person who was running the country, but they got some other group that's even worse, that it's more detrimental to people and more abusive. So if they don't have something to advocate,
That's right.
it won't work.
Have a blueprint to improve the direction and performance. You have to have a whole staff of engineers, chemists, construction people, contractors who understand the direction, who will participate and carry out the plans of the Venus Project.
Okay, Jacques, here's one for you. Did you ever become distracted by girls when you were a young man developing your knowledge on the world? Did you try to minimize romantic relationships in order to work on developing your knowledge?
No, I never did that. I always try to teach people whatever I had to offer. This goes for girls and my friends. I try to introduce them to the best information I was able to accumulate at the time.
Did you try to minimize romantic relationships so you could develop your work?
I don't know what a romantic relationship is. If they understood the direction, they joined with me and would try to instruct others in the methods.
This is Roxanne. What did Carl from these early tapes, I guess the 70s and 80s, because I mentioned Carl gave us some of these tapes. He attended lectures. What did he do with his life? Did he work? Did he spread the ideas? Yes, he does work, but he spends most of his time, he would say, learning new things. He gets very interested in reading books and traveling, and he still comes up here quite often and attends some of the tours that Jacques still gives. And he did try to spread the information the best he can. He always is very verbal and talks to people wherever he is. He lives in Miami still. Okay, this is for you, I guess, Jacques. When you were designing things many years ago, as you were growing up, were there ever times where you were unemployed and had difficulty surviving day to day? What sort of coping mechanisms did you use during these financially difficult times?
I'm still working on the design of systems of how to put up buildings more economically and how to reach different people that had value systems that were very different than the Venus Project. I still worked on methods for trying to reach people. I never stopped doing that.
But you would also, as I remember you talking about it, also be working on different things that interest you, different devices that were very...
That would assist in the building of the Venus Project.
Right. And there were times when you went broke and you'd have to sell off everything in your lab, right?
And that's not unusual. I expected that.
Yeah. Just to get money to survive.
Yes.
And a lot of the things you were working on were so different than the general technology of the day that it's nothing you could sell.
It was not commercial work that I was doing.
But then Jack would make little gadgets and things just to sell, so he could go back into his lab and work on the things he found were more interesting.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Jacques, in Walden 3, Katrin talked a lot about events that happened during the Bensonhurst years regarding your development. Are these events fictional or true? You read that book a long time ago.
Yes, most of them.
They were fictional.
Well, many events are, some of them are true, some are fictitious.
There was a lot of nonsense in that book too, wasn't it?
Yes.
It's just, yeah. Differences in methodology was one of the main points that split the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist movement. Jacques mentioned once that he not only worked on the essence of a resource-based economy, but also for years on methods. Learning about methods seemed to be essential. Are Jacques' methods about how to approach people laid down somewhere, or do we have to grasp them in little bits?
The book is called The Best That Money Can't Buy. Read that, then ask your questions.
There's so much information in terms of how Jacques approached people. Even if you looked at if you get some of his old lectures from the 70s and 80s, you'll actually see him talking to people who, some of them would come over and over again, and so the lectures would get more interesting on specific details and different topics. And then you would know when people would come in and they'd be more of an introductory lecture. So you'd see how he works on people through those lectures. There's really a wealth of information in those lectures. And all the material that we have is trying to show up Jacques' methods of reaching people. So I don't think you'll miss them in all the lectures on the CDs and DVDs and his books that we have. In a resource-based economy, equality is achieved. But what will happen to people who work for recognition? Will the unique character of the person be lost?
I'll have a go at that if you like.
Sure, go ahead, Sue.
Okay, well, first of all, we'd have a different mindset about working for recognition. We wouldn't be working for recognition. We'd be working for the good of society. So that whole recognition, I want people to know that I've done this, would be, at the end of the day, really, it's an ego thing. And as ego will eventually be overcome, that sort of mentality, that sort of a mindset won't exist. But that's got nothing to do with the unique character of a person. A unique character of a person will all be unique in our own ways anyway. Some people will like more towards the science side. Some people might tend more towards the artistic side, whatever. But that won't be anything to do with wanting to work for recognition.
Again. Say that again? I didn't have my
I
finger.
said, very good, Sue.
Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something about uniqueness of character. When people understand how they get their behavior and that they really are products of environment and it's nothing special that they did personally, even the idea of being able to work at long hours to achieve things, this is achieved incrementally with people. So people will have so many more new abilities to do things and achieve things when they understand that anybody can learn anything and achieve many things. So people will be more multidisciplinarians. So this whole fallacy of just being unique because you know how to do something will be lost because you'll understand that anybody can learn how to do many things.
Yes.
If they're in the right environment and learning situation for that person. And recognition will be looked upon as a sickness in the future.
Yeah, people do things because they believe in what they're doing. They believe the world will be better their lives will be better, and people will have less conflict. Do it for recognition. They do it to build a participatory, sustainable society.
This question is for me, I guess. Okay, my question is more for Roxanne than it is for Jacques. I've heard Jacques say that he's not really worried that he's not getting older, I guess that he is getting older, they meant to say. There are much more important things to worry about, and I know that Roxanne has been working with him for a long time. Does Roxanne feel that she can follow through with Jacques' plans for a resource-based economy alone? Sorry for my English. Well, I don't think I'll be alone at it, and nor can Jacques follow through on this alone. So, you know, I've learned a lot from him in 35 years, and I know how to do a lot of things technically as well. We have all his material that we've documented very well. There's no way I can stop working toward this, so I will do whatever I can at the time with, I'm sure, a lot of people's help who are still, you know, who are helping us now. We couldn't do this without everybody's help at this point either. It's not going to come about with just Jacques alone or just me or Jacques.
Right.
There's no way you'll be alone because there's going to be all of us here as well, you know, so we're going to be there right by your side.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's no way I think I could do anything else. You know, once you get past a certain point of understanding certain things, you can't go back to Jesus, or you can't go back to trying to make money and improve your own lifestyle. That becomes very empty after a while, even though you need money to exist, but achieving that is not an achievement that's interesting.
Yeah, your well is poisoned.
That's right.
I'll have a go at the next question if you like.
Okay, great, sir.
Okay. The question is, the fact that I have not consumed bananas during the last month doesn't mean I will not want bananas the next month. Surveys should be used to anticipate people's needs, so people would be expressing their will and the management would have to accommodate those needs, as long as there are resources to do it. Isn't this a voting process? Well, basically, the whole thing about the supply and demand would be very similar to what a supermarket or a store does today. They don't go out and ask people, next month will you be wanting to buy bananas or apples? They just do a general survey and there will be more or less enough for everybody. And let's be honest, if it's bananas, then you're not going to buy it one week you don't need bananas. But it's the same sort of system as we have now for the shops, just on a very much larger scale. So it's not a voting process, it's a survey process, and there will be abundance anyway. There will probably be more than enough.
Close enough, so.
Yeah, it's good. How can we best support the movie project now? I guess if you know anyone in the field, or if you want to send out information to people that you feel might identify with the Venus Project and what the movie is going to be about, you know, this is what I'm doing a lot. I'm sending out to people who I think, actually we're hearing from different people. We're following through on that. But a lot of times when I see somebody I think might identify with this, I try and get in contact with them. Not always successful. I seem to have more success when people are reaching out to us. But it's very important to try and contact people and let them know about this. And the question goes on, if we can make videos and translate materials or talk to people, would that help bring about the movie sooner? Yes, I'm sure it would.
By all means.
Yes, please. So that Jacques could be alive for the building of the first city. Yeah, that's what we're working towards.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
How to become a valuable specialist for resource-based economy, just multidisciplinary, and how to just technical specialist to work on production automation and science or some other useful things, just how to gain useful experience now, because we can't get many specialists in a short time. We just need to begin preparing now.
Okay, I would say learn as much as you can about this direction first, so you know what to advocate, especially the best that money can't buy, or if you can make it to the tour here on Saturdays, but then Learn anything in the scientific fields. People ask, what do we do to help the Venus Project? What should we study in school? We always say the physical sciences. And there's so many things online, there's so many things all over the place. If you begin to understand science is questioning everything and everything is related to other things, then you kind of automatically start to go between different fields. But just learn as much as you can in the physical sciences, whatever interests you.
Roxanne, everything means nothing. It is just what to, how to learn, how to become a specialist, how to earn my living until I don't work, I don't have money to come to Venus. So, and if I come to say, how can I help the Venus project if I don't have, how can I help creating in the first city if I don't have valuable skills? So I think I need to just to work on some progressive enterprise that will be then provide useful experience for just production automation or other areas just for creating first city or something like this.
Yes, anything related to the physical sciences, as we said, will be related to the things that we need for the development of the first city, and a knowledge of the Venus Project and the direction of a resource-based economy. So anything you might be interested in relation to the physical sciences, science and technology.
And once you become skilled at some particular field, you will be assigned a different project. You have a list of assignments that people can join up with, and we'll call upon you.
No, we have a database of professionals, over 3,000, But we are going to have another database of other people's skills other than just professional and people what people are interested in too, so we can call upon them. But actually we're working on a new website so other people we can change and update our website more easily. Andrew had handled all of that on our last website, but he has gotten so busy that he can't handle all the changes and the things that we need. So other people now are interested in helping with that, and creating a new website will be easy to get around, and we will have that other database on there as well.
It's very important for me to feel that what I'm doing is useful. It's something beneficial for the world, for the society. So, and after I came across this direction, resource-based economy, just I can't do anymore the job I consider useless. So I can't go just trading some useless things. It is if I do so, I feel very bad. I need something. I need just to work. I need to earn my living somehow. But I need to understand that this work, what I do, it really changes the world positively. I won't agree on anything less, but I don't understand just what to begin with. I just how to begin, and I just intend to migrate to USA or to other, or just to warmer climate, and to USA also for some time. Just and I don't just understand what to begin with, how to become a valuable specialist that valuable worldwide in different countries. Just how to begin even.
Okay, go ahead.
You go to school and you become an architect or an engineer. If you study mechanical engineering or automation or computer science, you can help.
Yes, and if you get books on what the methods of science are, what science is and what the methods of science, the different methods are about, right? Then that's useful too.
Any technical field, you'll be useful.
I have finished Polytechnical University in Krasnoyarsk. This education is bullshit, and it very slightly corresponds to reality. I am learning MIT 6.002X online course, Electronics and Circuits. It is much better than this education. It is just much more lively, so much more practical, I would say. So, but also also education, it is just knowledge is only a possibility of power. Power is in applying knowledge to something. Just knowledge you don't apply, they very quickly, you lose them very quickly. So, and in fact, in Krasnoyarsk, there is, I don't know what production is really modern, because most plants, they just go outdated. I don't know, it is just not demanded. Many specialists, they don't know what to do, just because there is no modification, and one by other plants close and so on, and how to, if where to get practical experience.
I just want to say this. Are you looking for a specific thing that will be suggested or could be suggested to you that you would be doing for the next 20 years, and when the time comes that you would directly be able to help with the building of the first city or the realization of the resource-based economy? Are you looking for a specific thing?
Yes, or several specific things. Just Jack told we need multidisciplinary specialists. Surely you need to begin with something one, but just then to develop in different direction. But I even don't know how to begin with.
Well, I don't know, maybe Jacques or Roxanne can interrupt me here, but I don't know if anybody can actually tell you what specifically you can study or educate yourself with. And then in 20 years, this particular subject would 100% be needed. As far as I understood from Jacques and Roxanne, you know, most applied sciences, most physical science, science and technology in general, you could pick something up that you like the most, doing the most, meaning you get enjoyment in spending many hours on this, and become, as people say, professional on it, or basically have in-depth knowledge about this particular subject.
What you just said is correct. You do that, and the more you know about any given subject, the easier it would be to give you different assignments.
We have one question here. How does the creator fit into the theory of the Venus Project? It doesn't.
We have no understanding of that. I don't know what you're referring to.
That was just a question. We'll take this one last question. Zachary wanted to ask a question. I don't know if he's still there.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, first I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Zach. I'm training to be a co-POC for California, and I'll start a chapter in downtown Los Angeles, maybe work with the movie production and get some celebrities on board. And to go straight to my question, however, when I'm talking with other TVP members, a popular subject that likes to be brought up is religion. And my response is always that it's not a smart idea to talk about that at this moment in time in the society we live in, as we want to get more people on board no matter what their little minute idiosyncrasy opinions are. And some subjects would, I believe, would just be more productive not being spoken about. I was wondering, since a lot of people listen to Jacques, if what his opinion was, and if what kind of policy when it comes to discussing religion or not he would rather disseminate.
Jacques says, well, if you can't handle religion, the religion aspect of it, if you have trouble with people, then stay away from it and deal with other things that you have in common with them that they can understand until you have practice taking that on with some people and have some success.
If you study the Venus Project, you'll find out that its final conclusions are everything that the Bible states. It's a brotherhood of humanity.
Yes, tell them the similarities. It's everything that religion talks about, but it's...
We convert to a way of life.
We convert to a working reality, I usually mention. So you can start with the similarities that way.
When it comes to TVP members discussing religion with possible new members, how can you tell them to be an effective judge of their skill when it comes to that topic before they, because it seems like they want to talk about it zealously.
Well, it depends on how effective people are in regards to that. If you find that you're becoming argumentative, then you're just trying to hold a position and the other person's trying to hold their position and you're not really getting through to them.
Read the book.
The best that money can't buy. Yeah, you can read
different chapters in there.
No, he's talking about religion specifically.
We talk about it.
Right, you could get some tools from the book, you know, The Best That Money Can't Buy. There's a lot of tools in that dealing with religion as well.
Could I just make a little comment there, please?
Anytime.
Okay. One thing that I have noticed is that sometimes people get rather keen to start ridiculing people who believe in religion. And whilst I understand it can be tempting sometimes because we think we know so much now, you know, we are awakened and all this kind of thing, we have to be very careful not to offend people. And I think sometimes the tone that people take with religious believers is offensive. So I think we have to really watch the way that we answer these kind of questions so as not to offend anybody, because we're only going to close our ears if we do that.
And I would like to add to that also, you can find lots of in common points with religious people if they would like to implement their if they would like to implement the paradise on the earth and love and the compassion which most of the religion propagates and hold in the teachings. And you can just get with these similarities and maybe put aside some arguments before you can implement the resource-based economy. When people will start to live together, then we can explore other things.
Right, all that is useful.
Okay, so I just see I see it a high priority, educating TVP members to be cautious and do it right.
Yeah, just use the Bible. Take the quotes out of the Bible which say that we all work together. If the Lord created the earth for everyone, then we ought to take good care of it and one another, because all people need the same thing: clean air, clean water, food, a relevant education. We'll make sure that everybody gets that.
Yeah.
And if that isn't good enough, I don't know what religion is.
And you can use their own tools. You know, there's a lot in the Bible, like thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. You can use those.
There's no money, no business
you
in
can
heaven.
use those.
Tell them that.
You're telling
There's
them.
no money, no business in heaven, no private property. And so I would say the Venus Project is the nearest thing to interpreting religion into the brotherhood of humanity.
You can use their own tools like that from the Bible to show them what it could really mean on earth and how we can achieve what religion talks about. So you can practice it that way as well, without hitting them on their religion, but expanding what that might mean. Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up for today. We really appreciate all your help, everyone, and all your comments and questions, and we'll talk with you next week. Jacques got a mouthful of apple pie, so he says thanks too.
Good appetite, Jack.
Yeah, enjoy it.